Jewish Canadian lawmaker Selina is calling out members of her Progressive Party for refusing to stand up against anti-Semitism, and she's decided to leave her party and go independent. We're very happy to be joined by Selina, who is in Vancouver, British Columbia. Good evening, and first of all, happy Women's Day. And I have to say, from one woman to another, for you to stand up and not have a lot of people around you to support you is a very brave move. What was that trigger that's made you go as far as you have?
Well, thank you, and happy International Women's Day to you as well. October 7th certainly changed everything for the Jewish community here in British Columbia. We're a small community, about 40,000 Jews who live here in this fabulous part of the world. And of course, we joined with Israelis and Jews around the world grieving the massacre. We're a multi-ethnic province. We have people from all around the world who make British Columbia their home. Certainly there were others who were grieving as well. Certainly the Iranian community joined with us, which was quite surprising to me. But over time, part of what we were seeing here in British Columbia was, Sami Doon operates here. We were seeing certainly people calling for a unilateral ceasefire. Over time, we have people who have been throughout Canada, not just here in my province, wrapping themselves in Palestinian flags, putting keffiyehs over their mouth and nose, hiding their identities, and marching in the streets and intimidating the Jewish community. We've had certainly activities that threaten Jewish businesses, marching on our campuses, intimidating Jewish students. We've had people afraid to even share their identity publicly, removing their Star of David, hiding in essence. And that's been very alarming. We've also had in civil society, we've had, our teachers union is making statements and resolutions calling for a unilateral ceasefire. We've had people who work in the public service. Their backgrounds will be a Palestinian flag. And certainly as one of only a couple of Jews, but certainly the person who is most Jewish, I've always called myself the Jew in the crew because I participate in Jewish holidays, and I am and have been tasked by two of our leaders to be the voice of the Jewish community. And so I've been working with the Jewish community and hearing their concerns and bringing it forward to my government to take action. We're seeing a dramatic increase in anti-Semitism. The Vancouver police just posted a 64 increase in anti-Semitic acts that they are dealing with just in the one city, not in the entire province, just in one city. And our government was silent. They didn't say anything about it. And there's almost been no action. There's been lip service. Certainly, our leader has been saying, don't be anti-Semitic. Don't call for death to Jews. Don't do that. But there hasn't been any action. And
right. It's like no censor. It's not a good idea, but they're not backing it up with
action.
Fear. Exactly. No action. So how did that feel? I imagine it's a very isolating feeling, even though I'm sure you have friends and colleagues who are, compassionate to what the Jews are going through around the world. But did you feel very rejected and almost violated yourself in the fact that nobody was responding to your efforts?
For sure. And in fact, when October 7th happened, and I said, listen, I will speak at that event where the Iranian community came in numbers, and I will represent. And within 2 days of that, they still hadn't even buried Ben Mizrahi, who was killed. He's a Vancouverite who was killed on October 7th. And I had colleagues say, well, we should talk about the plight of the Palestinians, and it's just like, the IDF hadn't responded yet. 1,200 people were mutilated and slaughtered, 1,200, Israeli and Jews and others. And you want to talk about what's happening in Gaza. this happened in Israel. We need to acknowledge what's happened here. And so like those were some of the things that I was experiencing. And then finally, I mean, last month I was on a B'nai B'rith panel talking about what was happening and what we were seeing in our streets, and how little people understood history, how little people understood around the Holocaust and the impact of the Holocaust. And why Israel came into being and how it came into being. And I made a very poor choice of words, but I talked about how, you know, Jews who were displaced from Europe and who had been fighting for a long time for a land, you know, to go back to their homeland, were now on this, and I regret using these words, but I called the actual land a crappy piece of land, because it had no water, it had no oil. It was either desert or swamp. Like, it was not a rich, robust piece of land like we have here in British Columbia, which is resplendent with resources. And the I'll call it the mob, who had been targeting Jews and intimidating Jews, grabbed those lines, and it went viral on Twitter. They were marching for me to be ousted from cabinet. I was the finance minister, and then I was the minister for post-secondary education. The imams were threatening here in British Columbia that, you know, that if I wasn't tossed from cabinet, that no one from my party would be allowed in their mosques. And so it just took on a life of its own. And my colleagues said that I needed to leave cabinet. And that, I mean, my heart had been breaking all along, all these 5 months, but certainly last month, the double standard. I've had a number of colleagues who have said anti-Semitic things, or things that delegitimized Israel or Israel's right to defend itself. And each and every time, you know, I manage the relationship between the Jewish community and our government, and you know, apologies were given, people were contrite, they won't do it again, and it was okay. But for me, the Jewish voice, it wasn't okay. And my colleagues said I needed to leave. I needed to leave cabinet. So I did. And for the last few weeks, I thought, okay, what can I do? How can I use what's happened? I mean, I apologized. I've been doing outreach, actually, to Muslim leaders here, particularly Arab Muslim leaders that are here in
Are they receptive to your outreach?
They are amazing. I want to give them such credit. They have been warm, and we talk about our respective pain, our agony for what we see happening on television. Our hearts are breaking for everybody who is suffering as a result of this conflict. And we can't allow the conflict to destroy us here. Like, we can't. We have to stand together. And they want to work with me. And I suggested to my government that what I could do, because I am well respected in the Jewish community, I want to bring my relationships together with the relationships that we can form with the Arab Muslim community here, and find ways to be compassionate with each other, to hear each other's pain, and to find a different path for disagreement if we must disagree. And that part of that would be anti-Semitism and anti-Islamophobia training for everyone in my caucus. And I was told that was too political, and that for me was the end. I couldn't carry on pretending that it was okay, that I was okay, that the Jewish community is okay. And so I felt like I needed to leave, and it was a very public leaving.
Wow.
And I can't be silent anymore. It's too cowardly to be silent.
It's just incredible how much our lives have all changed in the past 5 months, that you're trucking along, you know, doing everything that you got into local politics to do, and now to have to, you know, to not only fight this fight, but to have to put yourself on the line and being willing to lose your job. But it sounds like you're on the path to making a difference, even if it's not in the seat that you held before.
That's right. And I'm committed to doing that. I mean, I've always, you know, I've been in politics for 16 years, and my commitment has always been tikkun olam, to heal the world. That's my role. And right now there are people that are hurting. And I think it's our job as leaders to listen to those people, to create space for those people, and to find a better path and a healthier path forward.
Wow. Thank you so much for speaking to us. And again, happy International Women's Day, and keep up the good work of not getting scared under pressure, because it's definitely scary.